Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining live today. This is Arthur Filip. I'm Executive Vice President of Sales Transformation and Marketing at HCL Technologies. And I'm joined today with some fantastic, prestigious winners of the 2020 Stevie Awards for Women in Business. This is such an awesome opportunity for us over the next number of minutes to have a conversation and really get to know these leaders, from their leadership to their perspectives on mentoring, to careers, to what's made them successful in business. This is a tremendous opportunity for everyone to learn from some of the very, very best in the global field of business. I'm just truly humbled and privileged to be here today with this group. One side note, obviously 2020 has been a very interesting year. Typically, we get together in person for a big awards extravaganza, but this year we get to do it as 2D avatars in a digital format. But I think you're going to be highly excited by the messages that our leaders have to deliver today. So big congratulations to each of you. And what I'd like to do, Lynda, starting with you, we'll do a very quick introduction. We'll go around the horn. If you could introduce yourself to the crowd and say hello.
Hello, thank you, Arthur, and hello, everyone. First, I'm humbled to be among this esteemed group of women and you, Arthur. My name is Lynda Pak. I am Senior Vice President within our technology organization at Estee Lauder Companies, and I lead all things technology for our global brands and our corporate functions. So very happy to be here.
Thank you. Edna.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. I too am very humbled to be with this group of women and honored here. I'm Edna Bickett. I'm Vice President of IT, Enterprise and Digital Strategy from Performance Food Group. Thanks.
Thank you. Annick.
Hello. Yeah, I'm also very privileged to be here. I'm based in Belgium, so it's a little bit more in the evening for me. And I'm the Vice President for Johnson & Johnson Medical Devices, EMEA.
Thank you. Gloria.
Hi, everyone. Also really excited to be part of this group. My name is Gloria Romeo. I'm the Senior Vice President of Product and Development at HMHS Solutions, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Highmark Health. I'm responsible for our EHS platform, which pretty much runs the, when you think of the life cycle of insurance.
Excellent. And Kathy.
So, of course, I'm honored as well. Totally unexpected for me. So thank you so much, HCL. And thank you, Arthur, for hosting or moderating this session. I am responsible for the technology that runs our Staples retail stores and some of our online properties.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for your introductions. You can see a real wide variety of industries and some very senior and important leadership responsibilities that each of you has. And Lynda, I'll start with you. A lot of times we hear about, as people rise through their careers, everybody's in search for that, recipe for success. How do you put it all together? How do you constitute your thinking and package yourself as you rise through your career? Tell us a little bit about what you see as a recipe for success, your mindset or philosophy that has really helped you in advancing your career.
Well, for me, I would say my recipe for success, there are a couple of things that come to mind for me. And very early on, I had the privilege of working with some senior leaders who really instilled in me some of these things, and I've tried to live by them as well as share them. And one is around having a personal board. Right, so it's your own personal board of directors where you have a coach or mentor, you have a sponsor, and these are the individuals who you are looking at both from a personal and professional perspective, to say, this is a life coach somebody I admire. This is somebody who I aspire to be. And your personal board will evolve with time as you grow and you evolve as an individual and as a professional. And so that personal board and identifying and planning around the personal board and how you interact and what you're getting the most out of this personal board that you establish for yourself, just like a company, they have a board of directors. This is your own personal board of directors who is committed to your success. The other aspect I would say is that I find to be so important is being able to network. And I am an introvert, but I have learned over the years about the success of networking and how critical that is, where opportunities just may happen because you're in a networking situation. And it does happen over Zoom as well in cases like that. Of course, it's putting your head down and performing. I don't believe any of us got here by slacking off. I think we all worked our behinds off and really proved ourselves as well. And I think a little slightly separate from your personal board, but still sort of related, are those cheerleaders in your life. And I have had cheerleaders in people who I admire, including my husband, who I admire tremendously, both professionally and personally, and as well as my family members and extended family members. And I think it is that balance for me that has really allowed me to be successful and give me my shining moments like this.
I think that's fantastic. And I think the concept, first of all, of that board of directors is something we can all benefit from. It's not easy, right? Leaders will come and go in that board of directors, I assume, over time. And I think you speak to a lot of people about being an introvert. Networking is a hard skill. I'm curious how you found, what are some of those first steps of putting yourself out there and establishing that network?
Well, I would really make it a point of, so networking for me isn't meet as many people as you want and spend the 2 minutes. For me, it's really have the 3 or 4 really meaningful conversations. And so sometimes, you'll meet someone and introduce yourself and say, and you're going to run into a lot of people, but at, let's say, a trade conference or a global summit of some sort, and or even a company event. And I think it's really understanding, one, some of the people you're going to know who is going to show up and really trying to figure out a way to network with them, but then also some of the surprises, the amazing connections that you have because you have the same things, same interests, or you have similar backgrounds, or there's something within an adjacent industry that is so relevant, and being able to get some of those real insights that really result in a second interaction afterwards. And then who knows after that, right? It's what you make of that relationship. And it's hard, but I do, and I use the word force. I do force myself to do it because I do find it very, very hard, but I do go out there. I do bring my best. I do try to be as authentic as I can. And so far it's been very helpful for me.
That's great. Thank you, Lynda. So Edna, let me ask you, throughout all of our careers, right, we face all types of setbacks, obstacles, walls and ceilings that get placed around us. What do you think are some of the most important attributes that a leader must have, not only to reach the pinnacles of leadership, but also advise and coach and mentor the people that follow the leader in terms of how to deal with those setbacks?
So thanks for the question, Arthur. And I find myself wanting to take notes during this session as Lynda was talking.
I'm doing the same, exactly.
From important attributes, I would say perseverance, always setting goals, being inquisitive and asking why and how, always being customer and stakeholder focused, and ensuring that your goals and strategies are aligned and working toward the same end result. Strong communication is extremely important as an attribute, as well as empathy and understanding various different aspects, whether it's from the customer's perspective, the vendors, or the associates, and those attributes are important. From a values perspective, I think the top three is integrity, trust, and respect, mutual across all of the team members, whether it's your peers, your associates, or your executive leaders, and treating them all with respect and expecting that as well.
It's those are all excellent, and I guess let me ask you this: how do you balance, especially as a leader, empathy? Really from the opposite, right? Which is sometimes you have to make tough, calculated decisions, maybe data focused. Maybe it's not fair. Maybe it's not right and just for everybody. So I'm trying to think of how to describe the opposite of empathy. But I think there are many situations that, as a leader, sometimes will require that. How do you balance those two, empathy and non-empathy?
Across the 30 years of career journey, there's a framework in particular that I always come back to, and that is, what is the correct thing to do from the company and stakeholders, shareholders perspective? What's the correct thing to do for the company, the function, the team, and the associate? And when you work through that framework, it's not always top down or bottom up. Problems come in and you use that framework to derive your answer. It may be an issue with an associate that requires an empathetic ear, but being able to balance that based on the other objectives of, is it going to impact the team? Is it going to impact the function? And taking it through that framework, per se, in your mind. And it comes very naturally once you have that framework embedded in your thought process. So it just really depends what the situation is, Arthur, and being able to use your gut and your experience, but still being empathetic to situations, whether it's the customer or the associate or even the vendor, especially through these COVID times. There's been a lot of different obstacles come along.
Thank you, Edna. Great learnings. Annick, let me turn to you. Let me ask you this question. Clearly being recognized for this award, very few get to this pinnacle. And you've obviously done a lot of great things, the right things in your career. But for those that are listening and learning today, if you look back and think of things that, if you were starting over from scratch, from a white sheet of paper and doing things differently, are there things you would have done differently? Are there lessons that maybe people younger in their career can learn that would help them avoid certain pitfalls or mistakes that you've seen along, the way of your career?
I have to say that I probably would do quite a lot the same. Because I work for a great company, Johnson & Johnson, and I have to say that all the employees within J&J, we all have our kind of North Star or our compass, which is our credo, and that really helps to drive us every single day. I think also I've been quite privileged to be able to have multiple experiences in the organization. And I think that's really important. And that's something that I would absolutely recommend for everyone, to continue to learn, to really always do what you're passionate about, because I have always taken a role, and it was never about the title of the role, but it was always about what I really liked, what I really appreciated, and what were some of the key drivers for me to really actually apply for a role. And there were some key elements for me that were always there. One was digital. I always wanted to make sure that there was an element of digital in everything that I was doing. but I also wanted to have a very broad spectrum of knowledge. So I think also that is something that really made me where I am today, because I've been working in our different sectors to really gain experiences both in pharma, medical devices, but also consumer. And that has been a tremendous experience. But I also have been able to learn every single element in IT. Really understanding infrastructure, really understanding applications, really understanding the business and be able to talk to the business. And I think the reason that I say I would do exactly the same as I've done in the past is because of the fact that I always have remained true to myself. And I always also have kept or tried to keep the right balance with my family, because I think that is something that I would really continue to recommend to everyone is never compromise on the values that you have. I think that's for me one key driver that I really want to share with everybody as well.
Fantastic. And I'll just comment, the never compromise on value. I think I've heard from each leader so far the same thing said in different ways, whether it's ethics, values, integrity, your own framework, your own mindset. And that rings so true. And it's such a great lesson to anybody, especially starting out their career. I will tell you, I think of my own young kids that are starting out their careers, and I'm going to make sure they see this video because they're getting a great life lesson. Let me ask this other question as well. You talked about developing a broad spectrum of knowledge, and I truly believe this is critical. How do you do it? Because, clearly work takes up, 1,000,000% of your week. Family or friends or life outside of work takes up the other 1,000,000% of your hours. What sources do you turn to? Is it, do you read a lot of big, deep manuals, or do you have lots of different ways of absorbing, pieces of digital information? How do you go about that?
I would say that there are different elements. I don't think that there is one real answer to this question. I think first of all is keeping an open mindset. Yeah, I really try to continue to challenge myself, and that really makes you learn about new things. I'm extremely excited about digital, and when I really think about digital healthcare, where are we going? That excites me so much that I want to learn and I want to really know more about. And that is really important, that you understand what really drives you, because then you have an interest and you will want to learn more. I think the other what's really important, or has been really important for me, is that you have the right, and I think it was mentioned before, the right people leaders that really can help you, because I think it is really important that they can see the strengths that you bring, that they can see and continue to develop you also in who you are as a person, to actually become a future leader. Because if I would not have had the leaders that I've had in my career, I'm not sure if I would still be where I am today, to be very honest. And then maybe finally is the support of your family. And let's be honest, if we don't have our family and fantastic kids, the two fantastic boys that I'm having, that really energize me every single day, that is probably another key source that we all have to continue to value. And then finally, the team. I really get a lot of energy and a lot of passion from my team members, and they also make me continue to learn from all of the knowledge that they actually all bring at the table, because they have a very diverse thinking that is really key to continue to actually challenge yourself as well on an ongoing basis.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Annick. Gloria, how are you?
I'm great.
It's interesting, by the way. I look at each of your industries, and at the end, I want to ask you maybe all of your reflections around the pandemic, because this is a year unlike anything else in all of our lives. But looking at the industries, each of you has had such a major impact in society and set of challenges. But let me ask you, Gloria, there's always, and we see this in the corporate environment, there are times in your life where you feel strong about something, you're driving a project, the old saying, if you want to go fast, go alone, but then there are other times that in order to go farther, you need to go together. And there is, I think, for everybody, a big adaptation throughout their career of knowing when to play a role singularly or to really embrace a team. Whether you love the team or you have to adapt to the team altogether. If you think about your own career journey, where have you seen those kind of instances, and who are some of the people that played, I think, essential teaching and support to you in helping you balance the two?
Okay. I think obviously we've heard a lot of the answers already, but finding the right leaders that believe in you, especially when you're starting out, right? You've got to find people are going to view you differently. So you've got to find the people that accept you for you and help you grow and learn and move up. As you start having more responsibility and having bigger teams, the members of your team really become crucial to your success. If they can't deliver, especially I deal with a lot of really complex, large projects. If they can't deliver, ultimately you're responsible for it. So, even if you're sure that you've got the right people in the right roles, you always want to be there for them and support them and ensure that they have what they need so that they can deliver and they can get the job done. And if they don't, you need to help them figure out how to do it. And so it's really a two-way street of support with your team, right? You're helping them, they're helping you get whatever objectives you've signed up for. I've always built good relationships with my peers. A lot of times I've worked in matrix environments, so that's really important. But it's also important to find those peers that you really can trust and that can support you through the challenging times, because everyone's going to hit challenges and setbacks along their way. And so finding those people that can help you navigate and are going to give you honest advice when you need to hear it, but will also support you when the going gets a little rough. And then you also mentioned here was, your family support. My husband supports me in everything that I want to do. I put in a lot of hours. He balances it, keeps me kind of taking the lighter side of things when I'm a little stressed. So I think, it's a village, right, of support that and it may change as you go up the ladder, but you always want to have those people around you. I think if you go at it alone and you don't work with others when times do get tough, you're going to struggle to find the support to help you through it. And so you've always got to think about the other people that you're working with.
That's fantastic. And you brought up something that I think, two things. One is, I think it's a great recognition, family and teamwork and spouses also as a partner in the journey, because there always is a give and take, and it's so important for people to adapt to when they're not especially when your spouse is not actually in your work environment. Let me ask you. I'm sure you've encountered, you talked about peers, right? And having trust. There are times, especially in a matrix environment and the higher you go up the ladder, that you have peers you don't trust, and those are sometimes the hardest, because unfortunately people will try to subvert you even when you don't know it's happening. How do you deal with those situations?
Just try to build the relationships. And going back to what Lynda said, I'm kind of an introvert. And so it's hard because I don't really like conflict. And when I was younger, I would really back away from it and not have those conversations about what's really going on. So I think you have to talk to the folks and try to find a common ground. And there will always be people that may not have your best interests, but figuring out how you best can work together and just being aware and doing your best. Because if you're on your game and you've got your integrity and you're doing your best, it doesn't matter so much if they may not have your best interest, because you're doing what's right. And I think you always have to follow your gut there to make sure you are doing what's right, for not just for you, but for your organization.
Outstanding. Thank you. Thank you for that sincere answer and really important stuff. Kathy, let me ask you, if you think about mistakes that people make early in their business career, especially women, I mean, here's the fact. We still do not have an equal work world. We still do not have equal pay in many industries, in many countries. And it's something that I think everybody is fighting for and we're getting better at, but it's just nowhere where it needs to be yet. But if you think about early on in people's career, how would you counsel young professionals coming up to think about mistakes they ought to avoid and ways they should have their eyes open for situations that are not particularly equal or just?
Yeah, I mean, that is a great question, Arthur. But before I get to that, I just want to go back 1 second, because both Lynda mentioned this and Gloria mentioned this, and I'm going to mention it. I'm also an introvert. So I want to give hope to all the introverts out there. Yes, and Edna. So, a lot of times we feel invisible, or we make ourselves invisible, and we think it's always the extroverts that get ahead. Anybody who's watching this, that is not true. So, and that kind of goes into some avoidable mistakes or some advice I would give people, and I do give people because I mentor quite a few people. So, my career started quite a while ago when women engineers were an anomaly, almost like a unicorn. And I really wish I would have found my voice sooner and had more confidence in my opinions. And certainly that has grown over time, as anybody who knows me will testify. But, raise your hand. Ask for advancement, ask for, those challenging assignments, ask for more money, like have faith in yourself, listen to that inner voice, because it's more than likely that you know more than you think you know. And it's more than likely you know more than a lot of people in the room, but if you don't speak up, nobody is going to know that. And the more comfortable you are expressing your opinion, and you don't have to be right all the time, but you have to have the data to back it up, have the experience. The more people are going to listen to you, the more they're going to say, hey, that's a different perspective that I didn't think about before. It might not be the way we want to go, but it brings another element to the conversation. And, I've always believed that the more opinions you can get, the more perceptions you can get around a problem, the better solution you can come up with. So, today, and I work with a lot of women who are younger than me, I look at them and they are so much more confident in the room than I was at their age. They don't feel like there's anything to being a woman. It's just everybody is equal. And I look a little enviously saying, how come I didn't have it that easy? I was off by about 15 or 20 years. So, I think it's much easier today. Arthur, as you said, there are definitely still challenges, and there's definitely discrepancies when you look at career paths for women and who makes it to leadership, to VP, to CI, whatever, CTO, and even in salary. And one thing I would say for anybody who is a woman leader and you do have control over some of these things, make the salary adjustments, make it even, be consistent across your organization. Like, give somebody a hand up that maybe you didn't have, 20 or 30 years ago. So, I think the mistakes are fewer these days, and they're not, mistakes that women make. I think they're just mistakes that people make early in their career, because I do think we've come a long way, especially in technology and in the sciences.
Such outstanding advice. And I want to ask you, and I really want to ask all of you, certainly we all see this, right? Growing up and going through your career, no matter what level, there are always bullies in the organization, right? And some of those bullies, they act in different ways, but they also typically will act to keep less of a diverse environment, and they'll look for, more of their own crowd to kind of keep things the way they like. How do you handle those kind of situations? And by the way, I call them bullies, but they're I guess it can encompass a lot of people. I've always told my kids and people I mentor that most of the bullies, fortunately, I've seen in my career are usually they're self-toppled. They don't make it. They might get high, but they don't stay there very long. But I'm just curious your thoughts on that, and I'll really open it up to the group. Of situations you may have faced, and especially to people that are newer in their career, facing it maybe for the first time. How do they deal with that?
Yeah. So somebody who is clearly a bully and they're upfront about it, and that's easy for me to deal with because, I'm happy to have a constructive conversation about anything to sort out differences of opinion. I think the hardest thing to deal with are those passive aggressive people that are, they try to kind of do things behind the scenes, and that is definitely a point that, a trigger point for me. Because if you're going to come at me, just come at me. Don't do it behind the curtain and whisper, just do it. So, now where I am, when somebody's doing that, I just call them out. I don't care if you're not, if my company and my leadership is not happy with the job I'm doing, then fire me. But I'm going to be open and honest and authentic every day, because that's where I am in my life and in my career. Maybe don't be as direct if you're at the very beginning, but at some point you just have to be who you are. So, I would go at it in a professional way, and then you just see where things go.
Yeah. I would, if I may, I would completely agree with that in terms of calling out. But in certain situations, the call outs, it requires a good investment of time to work with the individuals. And I would say one of the techniques that I've used, and I spent almost 2 decades in consulting. And what we would do when we would go into a very big presentation is we would look at the profile of every individual and say, what is their motivation? Are they an ally? Are they not an ally? Are they neutral? And basically look at, what could I get closer to somebody who influences them, or someone who is their peer who would be a very strong supporter of the things that I or my teams do? Or are there other ways? The calling out, or really trying to connect authentically and saying, hey, this is what it is. There are those types of techniques that I've used. I have to say that they don't always work the first time, and it is hard. And you just have to keep trying to work within that situation where it is the least distracting for you to succeed. And I think that's first and foremost, despite maybe they have different motives, and maybe we think about bullies who have their own insecurities, and some people are hoarding information because it's job security to some extent. And I think for me, it's helped me at least to try to understand where they're coming from, as Edna's talked about empathy and trying to understand where they're coming from, and to try to work with them, because hopefully the big goal, the long-term goal within your company, within your group, is at least aligned. And if that's not the case, there are other techniques which I may not mention. No, I'm totally kidding.
That's fantastic, the team. And You know, the first one, I want to go back a little bit to the theme of equality. And so we're going to have a lot of people that tune in and, you know, watch the Winspiration series and look to this video and other learnings, you know, from the great leadership lessons that each of you demonstrate. Specifically men, when it comes to diversity, equality, and inclusion, do you have advice for men? What do men have to learn to be better in opening the eyes and understanding the depth of the issue, you know, and where we need to be? I hope that's a fair question, but I will tell you that there are many people that do want to learn this answer and understand your perspective.
So I had something happen just last week that still kind of stuck with me. And first I want to start with, like, some of my best leaders that have really helped me have been men. So to say men in general is not the case. But I was on a call last week and I asked someone about diversity in their company, and they were talking about how they're doing more for women and programs they have. And the person said something like, and we're talking to parents so they know it's not just about programming. There's other things in tech. And I didn't have a chance to respond, but don't assume that women don't like the programming and the tech part. I love technology. Like, I don't actually hand on keyboards anymore, but to think that women don't like the engineering and digging in and solving the problems, I couldn't believe that someone actually said that. And so that there's that unconscious bias that probably still exists. And it's, there are geeky women out there that like to dabble in technology. I'm proud of it, right? So,
yep.
I think it's important to admit that you could potentially have an unconscious bias, right? I mean, I'm female and I'm Asian. I could say I'm a person of color, but I have my own unconscious biases, and I am with a growth mindset. I'm constantly learning about what those are, and I think having that growth mindset and that the mindset to learn that somebody can actually teach you something, and it really doesn't undermine your position or how senior you are or anything else. And I think it's important to know that women respect male colleagues who can actually say, wow, I thank you, that really helped me learn quite a bit, and I think sometimes it's really when we talk about diversity, inclusion, and equity, I oftentimes get into a conversation where we may be talking about inclusion and someone says, well, no, that's really diversity. But let's make sure that we're defining it properly. And the analogy that I've always used is, diversity is who you invite to dinner. Inclusion is how you make them feel at the dinner table. Are you bringing people into a conversation? Are you asking questions to get to know them better? Are you creating a safe space to share and discuss or debate a particular topic? And equity is giving your guests, giving people what they want or need. Be considerate of their allergies, or do they have other dietary restrictions? Are they pescatarians? Are they vegans? And with the end goal of making sure that everyone is satiated equally, and that it is a success, that they're full. And I think when I start to put things in that way, it makes it a little clearer to the person that I'm talking to, and to really come at it from the again, I'm here to learn as well, because I know that absolutely I am, and accepting the fact that we're not going to know everything about what it means to walk in the other person's shoes, and to be open to and liberally sharing yourself, and your openness to that is critical.
And I think maybe to finalize on that one, I think also on diversity and inclusion, the importance of having these programs in an organization, because diversity of thought is not only about female, male. I mean, it's also about millennials. It's also about, I mean, really ensuring that we think holistically and that we ensure that diversity of thought is so important. And whether it's male, female leaders, I think we all want to ensure that we continue to drive diversity and inclusion programs in the organization. And I also maybe want to give a tip to females that are out there to ensure that they can apply to any role they like. And I really think that's an important one, because I have to say that when I reflect, I very often was looking at a job and I was thinking that I had to check all of the check boxes that were in that job description. And I just want to make sure, and I feel that maybe it's something typical that we tend to do. And I really want to encourage everybody to just apply. If it is a role that you really like and that you want to do with a passion and that really builds on your strengths, and maybe it's not checking all of the boxes, apply. And I can guarantee you that you will be an amazing person in that role.
But it's for us as leaders, as female leaders, and someone said, pull up another woman, where when we see talented females, that we also give them those opportunities because we are now in that position to do so. Yeah.
Outstanding. It's so many learnings, and I really appreciate the candidness and the depth of the advice that you're giving. One final question for you. We're living in this once in a generation event. So much has been written and said and digitally paneled about. But, if you think about just the last 9-10 months, and we still have a few more months to go till people are vaccinated, and, who knows what the actual deadline or timeline and what life looks like afterwards. But, decades of planning and action were packed into literally days and weeks. When you think of the digitalization that we all had to do and getting our companies right and straight. We haven't had any travel. We haven't had any in-person engagement. I think across all companies, the instincts were to band together and to focus on what we all could do versus what we couldn't do. We've seen gratitude probably in the corporate world like we've never seen it before, and empathy like we've never seen it before. For each of you, I'm sure you've had time to reflect this. Let's say 2 years from now, and it's a perfect world again, whatever that might look like. We're back to action. We're, probably working 50% home, 50% in the office, whatever it might be. What's the one resounding thing that you hope to take with you as kind of a life lesson, or maybe even a change in your own leadership ways of doing things that you'll carry forward? Is there anything that stood out amongst the many lessons that we've all had?
I'll jump in. So this is Edna. One thing is to not be concerned about stepping out of your own boundaries. So if there's a business problem to solve, make yourself available to be at the table and help solve that problem instead of being in a back office. Well, I'm IT, I'm not going to address it. But be out front, offer, volunteer, help problem solve. And the second thing is communicate with your team and communicate with each other. I can't express enough how important it was to have weekly meetings with my team and my peers as we went through this journey together, and ensuring that we were helping with the food supply chain. That was extremely important to all of us.
Yeah, I'll agree. The communication and the quality of the communication and the amount of time, especially for my senior leadership team, we meet every day. So C-level and all the VPs, every single day we meet for an hour. And that has led to, such a great alignment across all the areas, whether it's marketing or merchandising, supply chain, technology. We are so aligned as a leadership team, and it makes it so much easier for the rest of the organization to know what to do. Like, it's very clear. And I think that's a huge learning, beside the fact that we've proven we can be just as productive, if not more productive, working remotely.
Mm.
I think it's also the resilience of our people. I mean, if I would reflect, then I have to say that every single day, if you think about everything that we have to manage with kids being at home, homeschooling, work, I think being able to talk to the people, not only about work, but really to understand just what's going on, I think is really an important one. Have fun, because the coffee breaks are all of a sudden gone. And I think we have to just make sure that we continue to have these informal coffee breaks and really understand what's happening. That is definitely something that I've been reflecting on a lot. And I think maybe finally, it has also made me think about, how do I want to relax? Because I think what's really important in these times is that it's very easy to work from morning till very late evening. And you still have then your family, and you really have to try and juggle it all around. And then you don't have that time to re-energize or to just your time. And I think one of the areas that I'm doing now is 2 to 3 times a week, I'm doing some jogging. I didn't do it before. I love sports. So, I mean, it's not that but I really love sports, that I really would encourage people to find that one thing or 2 things or 3 things that really make you re-energize, because I think it's really important that we continue to do that.
Annick, it's you made me think of something. It's true. Like I will tell you my own reflection. Last year I traveled, and it's multiple years in a row, but I traveled just a little bit under 1 million miles last year. I flew, and I didn't realize it that 5, 10, 20, 36-hour flights or trips were actually opportunities where nobody could reach me. I could read a book. I could actually reflect and think without things coming at me from all angles. And as much as the grind of traveling, I don't miss that. I miss that peace without video connection. But anybody else before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that's been said. And I think as no one really knows what that new normal is going to be, right? Are we going to be 50% in the office, 50% at home? Are people going to be in the office at different times as we do hoteling? I do feel like, something's lost by not having those informal conversations. You go, at least I go Zoom call to Teams call, and then you're just exhausted. And so I think we have to think about, if the new normal is going to be half your team at home and half in the office, like making sure that everyone is equally engaged, because the folks that are remote, either by choice or because that's what's been decided for their role, you have to think about how you balance those 2 different interaction models, and not, some people are happy to work at home, others are not. Even though I tend to be an introvert, I miss the energy that I get from my team. It's just not the same. So finding a way to balance that mix we're going to have, and make sure that no one feels left out because they have to be home, or it's not their, whatever it evolves to. I think we have to make sure that everyone's got the same experience in their day-to-day.
I think that's so important. And whenever I think about the pandemic, I think about the fact that the entire world went through the same thing. So when I'm in New York, and when I say I was there when I was on near the Brooklyn Promenade when the towers fell during 9/11, it's very different to say, wow, I actually felt the debris come over the water. But not everyone can empathize, but not everyone can say, yes, I lived that too. We're right now in as Arthur said, this is such a unique experience for everybody, where everybody is feeling the same thing around the globe, and for us to say, hey, listen, you know, I need some real FaceTime with people. I really miss that one-on-one interaction, and I have Zoom fatigue. People know what that means, right? There are things that I took for granted. I miss my commute. I miss this. There's no one who's going to, when Arthur was talking about being on an airplane, no one can reach you. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true, right? Because I am so reachable right now. So I think it's one of those things that connects us all together. And, you know, as horrific as it is, you know, there is some commonness, some things that bind us in terms of experiences and so forth. And, you know, we should be grateful that there's something that ties us all together, because sometimes there aren't enough things to tie us together across the world, holding hands. So.
Well, listen, Lynda, Edna, Annick, Gloria, Kathy, and for those of you who can see Tiffany's box, we had some challenges today from a technical perspective of connecting Tiffany, but we wish her well, and we look forward to hearing from her next time. And first of all, a big congratulations to all of you. You know, from an HCL perspective, holding and sponsoring a session like this, a Winspiration session, we call it, today, each of you, I think, provided a lot of energy and inspiration and spark to the many people that will listen to this. You know, you're right. We all, in this period of time, are searching for, without being able to connect in person, we look for those new sources of creativity and ideas. And this has been action-packed in terms of that. A big kudos. You know, each of you is a groundbreaker, not only for the success that you've had in 2020 and being recognized with a Stevie Award, but I will also say, listening to your stories and really learning about each of you, you know, for a number of years now, you have been paving the way and breaking new ground for so many that I hope realize that a lot of hurdles have been cleared for them because of the work that each of you have done in your industries and really throughout the business community. And to me, that's really special. I know that many people will see this video not only today, but afterwards. And I think that's one of the big lessons that people will walk away with. And I will also say this, forget getting a PhD in business, just watch this video, right? You've got a lot of life lessons that, you know, from business and transcend beyond that, of how to live and work and be a great citizen. And I thank you for that. You know, today you've each given us all a big hand up. And so again, celebrate you, congratulate you on the 2020 Stevie Awards for Women in Business. It's been my honor and humbled privilege to be able to have a conversation with you. I hope one day in the not too distant future, we can all gather in some city and have a celebration over a meal. So I hope you'll take me up on that, and we'll continue to learn from each other. And again, thank you, you know, on behalf of HCL for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.